now.
Okay, now I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting.
Second the motion. Open the meeting.
All right,
Vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, awesome. So we have a special guest here in person. You want? And there's two issues. You want to start with the Drury Drive issue first?
He needs a microphone, right?
Yeah, he should be at the podium.
Larry. Podium.
Okay.
But it's not plugged in.
Okay, why don't you come over here? Come on, use my microphone. Come sit here, come sit here.
Am I on?
Yeah,
it's on.
there-
Five minutes.
Mine's not on.
There's
There's no-
Yeah,
no light.
they tested it, there's no light, but it's working.
I don't understand.
You're here for two items, right?
Yeah, but I'm gonna sit.
I'll sit with you. finish.
Okay.
Okay.
Would like me to start?
Yes. go ahead.
Okay, I'm Gerard Fraioli from 1247 Drury Drive, which is off of Norwood Avenue. It's a dead-end street, a lonely house on Drury Drive. And the problem is there's an island in the front of the road. There is no parking on the right side after a sign. They allow 2 parking spaces on the right side. And on the left side, there's a sign on the island, no parking on the left side. The problem is people come in and they park on the left side. So I'm proposing you allow for 2 cars to park there and then put a sign, no parking from here on so I'm not blocked. I've sent you pictures and what's happening is people are blocking me. There's a situation on March 24th where I had to go in an ambulance and the area was blocked. The police car and ambulance couldn't come into my part of the street. It was raining profusely. So they had to carry me out of the house halfway down the block in the rain and took me to an ambulance. So that's unacceptable. And I really think if there's ever a fire there or the garbage men can't get there. So if they block me, it's a situation that could be a serious problem. So I'm proposing that we keep that access free. It was never a problem before, but the people living next door moved away. Now you have a lot of realtors coming. People are coming, looking at the houses. They're not familiar with the area. So it's not like I could address every person parking there, not to block us in, not aware of the situation. So I put a little paint. I projected a little so I can clear it. So maybe like 10 feet from the entrance. I put a little stick in the ground, I painted the curve, which I proposed the sign to be. So summary would be a sign, no parking from here to the rest of the side of the street. So we have access to our side. And the house on the corner, their driveway is on that side too. So they'll be blocked having access to their driveway. On the right side,
Perfect.
there's 3 houses that have their backyards. They use their backyards from there. Oh, good, you got it right there. Now you don't have a picture, but you see where the sewer is? You see the sewer on the left?
Yeah, this one.
Okay, yes. I came back about 10 feet this way, towards Norwood Avenue, this way, keep going. And I basically put a little paint, there's a car right there, so that's even not enough. So that should be up
Right.
a little further because the garbage truck could not get in. You see where they have the garbage, right? If you look to the right side, you see those garbage there? Currently, they're letting me use the garbage, but they moved on. So I'm not sure if they're gonna let me. So I'm gonna need access to my property with the garbage truck. So I don't know how they're gonna get in there if they're blocking that side of the road. That's about not even 10 feet. It's not a big opening. It looks bigger from the picture, but it's not a big opening.
So when the car was parked by that arrow, it's saying that the garbage truck or an ambulance can't get by
What
them, right?
happens is, see that
Because I
car right
went there
there?
and looks like they're parked against the,
Yeah, well,
curb,
that car
everything
is
fucking-
a minimum clearance. What
right,
happens is they pull a little bit further,
Exactly.
then you can't get in.
if they pull a couple feet out from the curb, you can.
No, no, it's not only that, it's when they want to get to their house. You see the sidewalk?
Yeah.
So the temptation is to pull right to the sidewalk, empty your car, they're inside there, and we can't get out. We have to go and ring the bell because they got people there looking at the house. And it gets to be a situation. Now, the right side, can you look to the right side? You have a picture to the right? You see, you have the island where the sewer is, that's an island. There's another, Drury Drive is broken into 2 spots. So can you shift to the right, I have pictures of that.
To the right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I did, I pulled it up on,
That is,
I'm sharing my screen on Zoom. So Ryan and Gary can see this.
okay, you see the pole in the front? You see that big pole? See the dead
Uh,
end?
The utility pole,
There's a sign on there saying no parking this side of street. But you don't see that sign, so everybody just parks and blocks us.
no
Now, the
parking
right side-
anytime.
You see that sign right there? No parking anytime. They got it on their side to leave it open. I'm proposing we do the same thing on my side. See, they have a little bit of clearance because the people living to the right need 2 spaces. I'm saying let them have 2 spaces on the left, but do the same thing. Put a sign on the left side. You gotta go left.
Now, I'm gonna see if, I don't know if I'm gonna see if, yeah, I don't think
Here's my house.
I was just checking to see if when, whoever did the street photography, they just went down the one side, so,
That's okay. Go back before and look at those 2 cars that you have there. Look how
Yeah.
tough that is to get it. You had one angle showing you how narrow it was. Another view you had. Maybe looking at the cars. Yeah, there you go. See how tight that is? See how that is not really a clear opening? And it's hard to get in there. So that car is about that's about the minimum distance I need. You get a garbage truck to not get in there to get out those garbage cans. So they have a problem where they got to drag everything down. And if they don't let me have access to the garbage can, because that was a family, that was a grandfather's house, so it was family related. New people are very nice, but who knows what the new people are gonna be. So I'm saying I might have to put garbage cans on where my car is all the way down the left. There's no way the garbage truck's gonna get there to give me service if they have cars blocking it. Same thing with the snow plowing. They can't come in there sometimes. When there's people really tight. Now, one of the cars did get hit by the garbage truck from the owner's car. They had a big situation, so it's, it's a problem. Now, that pole, like I said, if you can zoom on the pole in the middle, it does say no parking this side of the street. There is a sign there, a village sign on the left.
it says no parking anytime.
Well, right there is no time from that spot, or I'm proposing the same sign to put on the left side, so we have both sides clear like they have on the right side. But on that big telephone pole, I don't think you can see it. There's shrubs there, but there's a sign saying no parking this side of the street.
Can you tell us the date of when the incident with the ambulance?
March 24th at 12:10 in the morning. And there's a police report and everything.
Okay. That's exactly what it is.
So, fairly, like people on the right have 2 spaces. So I'm saying give them 2. They actually could pull up a little bit more because there's no sidewalk there. Where that car is there, they can move up a little more, and the other car can move up. So yeah, you can have parking for 2 cars on the left, which is fair, and just give us free access to the left side like you have on the right side. And again, that big house, 2-family house, their driveway is right past the garbage can, so they can't access their property either. Now, we can't turn around because I sent you pictures. If you go past the island, it's so narrow, there's no turnaround. So it's very difficult if I pulled out to the left, and try to turn around. See, look at the space. You can't turn around it. And that's a private driveway to the right, so there's no turnaround. There's just not enough room there. No, it's a little deceiving. It's not that wide. If you look at the scale, it's pretty small. That's just about a car length you get on that is barely just the width of a car length on that side of the street, on the right side.
It's really a service road.
Sorry?
It's really a service.
No, what happened was when they developed the road, the road wasn't even. So the village said, let's put an island in the center for safety. We'll have 2 axes. That's how they did it when they did the road years ago.
So instead of like building a retaining wall, they built
No,
the island.
it was just 2 grades. And then
Yeah.
at the time Al Croce was on the Parks Committee, and he said, he came by and said, just put shrubs here. So nobody makes a left turn and hurts their car. So that's what they agreed to do. So they have access to the right, the 3 houses on the right. By the way, those houses on the right are all on Raleigh Road. So that's the back of their houses. So they have frontage, but I have no frontage from my property off the road.
Jerry, do you remember them putting in the no parking on the other side?
Yeah, that goes back to, I built the house in 81, so I would say right around that time frame, there was issues where they were trying to block the road and stuff. the neighbors were really crazy. They were all fighting. So they didn't want people going by their side. They put a road up. They had litigation. So they finally took the fence down because they're blocking it. It took like 2 years. So they put that fence up because people were blocking the other people. The poor guy up at his house here on the corner, he could not get into his driveway. So as a result, the fence for 2 years. So as a result, he got a lawyer and they put that no parking from this point on to give everybody access. So there's 3 houses that use that part of the road to access their property.
And on the other side, like that, I know there's only a couple of houses there.
There's only 2 houses.
Yeah.
You see the cars to the left side? That's my house where the garbage cans are. And right past the garbage can, there's a driveway for the 2-family house. That's their driveway. So they need access also.
Do they feel the same as you?
Well, they moved,
Okay.
but yeah, they agreed. And we had an agreement. They would never block me. But since they moved, now you got, like I said, you got people looking at the house, the realtors, and the realtors gave me a hard time. They were doing it happened the other day. I took pictures. They blocked me in. I said, can you move your car? Yeah, in about a half an hour. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's up on the road. Well, we're in the middle of setting up an open house. So that's the stuff I'm dealing with. That's unacceptable. You know, when people just say, yeah, I'll do it when I get a chance.
Right.
No, that's not right. It's a road. This is the way I get access.
You
to my
live there
house.
and in an emergency.
Yeah,
which
and
is-
I had the emergency. I'm sick, so I'm really kind of worried about my health. And it's an ongoing issue. I had a seizure. I got biting cancer. Nothing too personal, but I'm not in the greatest shape right now in health, so there's issues, and I don't want to be in a situation in the rain again. That was tough, guys, being in an ambulance and so drenched in a hospital, soaking wet from the rain. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. And like I said, the ambulance could not come in and the police car couldn't. So they're all by the first car. That's where the ambulance was. They had to bring me, look at my house. They had to carry me all the way from the house in the pouring rain, heavy rain to the ambulance. And it wasn't very pleasant.
When you're pulling out and you see how this minivan is on the corner right
Yeah.
here, are you able to make your turn if you're pulling out?
That
clearly?
car is a little too tight. That car should be up more. That car should be half the length. See where that car is right there?
Mhm.
That car should be half of that car is where the sign should be.
But what I'm asking you, that minivan, if you encounter that and you're encountering this issue with that car parked flush on the corner.
No, you can't.
Mark,
because
can you speak up? I
you
can't hear you.
Oh,
You see
sorry.
the storm drain there in the middle?
Yes.
You'll rip your tire. The village put some blacktop there, but I told them, I said, here's the problem, guys. When people block us, a lot of people try to go over the drain, they break their tires, they rip their tires. So I brought that to the village then. They put a little bit of blacktop patch, but that's the other issue. People think you can get by, but there's a drain there. You can't go over a storm drain.
No, understood. I'm asking about this minivan. If you're leaving to make a right to leave your,
Oh, no, you pull the middle of the road. There's plenty of
And
clearance
there's
in the middle of the road.
plenty,
That's always open because it's open from both sides, has to be open. They allow 2 cars to park on the right. And I'm saying you have 2 cars parked left, you have the opening in the center. Garbage truck can fit in there. As long as that other car, half of it's open so they can come in with a garbage truck and pick up our garbage and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's no. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add or no? Yeah, it's a good point that you guys are bringing up. It's to me, and I think the rest of the folks in the room and on Zoom, like you had an agreement before with the previous neighbor. You have the no parking sign on the other side of the street. It makes sense that it would be consistent on this side. It wouldn't be a detraction from quality of life, and it would be consistent on the road and it'd be safe. I mean, Dan.
I agree. I agree too. Gary on Zoom. Absolutely.
All right,
I agree as well.
perfect.
I agree as well.
Unanimous.
Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate that. It was very simple. Appreciate you addressing the issue. That's really nice. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have to,
So do we have to contact the police? Who's going to implement this?
Well, if it's a no parking restriction, you'd have to make a recommendation to the village board to establish a no parking restriction and identify the specific location. So, it can be written up for Public Works to, install all the necessary signage once.
So you bring it up to the board.
Yeah, well, you guys tell the board, or you tell me to tell the board if you want, and I'll explain it to them.
So I did put a little.
Give me your thoughts, so I'm not just doing it for my.
Yeah, Laura, are you taking minutes for today?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll document it in the minutes and like we could formalize.
And there is a little white paint on the curb. suggesting where the sign should be put. If they're not sure where to put, allow us clearance. I put a minimum where a minimum clearance. I just painted a little white paint on the ground, put a stick there so they can see it.
That's perfect. I think we should.
Seems like a-
Yeah, and actually,
We should put
and
that in
actually
the
the
minutes that it's
realtors, they
there.
see that, and I've had a courtesy, they're starting to abide by that, but the homeowners aren't, but at least the realtors are. They're not locking us in because of this, because of the white paint that I showed them. I just asked them, until I get this addressed, the village is gonna address this issue.
Thanks for that. Sorry for.
Daniel, are we able to tell the resident how long this process would take as to when he would have a sign up there?
If, as long as I present the resolution to the board, once it's approved, it could probably be within a couple of weeks, because you have to do some administrative things. You have to call for code 53 to mark out utilities, things like that. It would be a couple of weeks.
Dan? Dan,
Yes, Robert.
because of his medical situation, can we expedite this?
Well, if you can, if I can clearly understand what the restriction is that you're recommending, I can write it up, put it on the work session for May 23rd. Our practice is that once it goes to a work session, it'll go to the board meeting, 2 weeks hence. So that would be, I think, June 8th or 9th.
Please report on it and then try to expedite it for that night.
Okay. Yeah, that's, if that's, we can ask the board to consider that.
It would be the same sign as the one on the right, no parking from here on the left side, right? That would be just like the sign on the right is.
Are you, is the request, I just want to make sure that I understand. It's basically, it will be parallel to the existing sign on the right side, all the way back to where the
You'll see,
driveway for that house at the end begins. Is that correct?
it shouldn't be parallel, it should be further down in the middle of that car, because you'll see the angle is a different type of angle coming in. The people on the
So-
right coming
So
in.
kind of where this bush is?
Yeah, you'll see, there's a stake right there, that's where I put it.
So almost mid passenger side door.
Yes, you'll see, and there's a stick, and I painted the curve would be the minimum, and you'll see that.
But basically,
I would
kinda-
say, it's about 8 feet past that, a little further down, right in the middle of his car is where the stick should be. Just to give the garbage.
but basically where this taller bush is.
Yep, that's it, there you go.
So the edge of this taller bush.
Yes,
So
it
the
is.
sign would reflect no parking from here to corner?
On this side of the street, just like the other one, from here on.
It'll be no parking all the way to the end.
Yes,
So, from here down.
yeah, because it's open right away, it allows open. And they can still have 2 spaces there, that's fine. To give them, for the house to have parking.
I mean, it might functionally just be the one space.
No, they can, I looked at it, you see where that car is right there, they can actually pull a little bit to the right, because the sidewalk is not, see that little drain cover? The sidewalk, you see the sidewalk, there's plenty of room, they can actually pull to the right there where the bush is. There's a
Okay, I see your thing.
Yeah, there's plenty for 2 cars.
Okay, I think I understand that.
Hey, Dan,
Yes, Lou.
perhaps we should just, the resolution should say that we'll send one of your guys down there to eyeball it and take the appropriate action to.
No, the resolution has to be specific as to the distance from the street. So it would say something to the effect, no parking from a point on the, I guess it would be the east side of Drury Drive from a point, 20 feet south of the intersection with Knollwood to a point, 100 feet south thereof, or something like that.
Okay, well, I'll defer to the commission and.
Yeah.
That's along the.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, what I can do is I can probably just, with the, with our GIS tools, I can just do a measurement. And and bring it back. I just have to figure out where it's at the end where Mr. Ferrari mentioned that's not a continuation of the street, but it's actually someone's driveway. Yeah, it's kind of a rare street where you see a road lead directly into a driveway, but that's not difficult. I'll do the same for I'll work up the resolution for the Stewart Avenue apartment as well for the 23rd.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone. And Jerry, you mentioned, and I think it was here, in one of the emails, there was another issue that
Yeah,
you
if
had.
you have
Okay.
time for that, if you like
Yeah.
to address it. Little history, it's the no U-turn. Kind of a dangerous situation. I experienced this.
Some Mamaroneck.
Going north.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're done with the driver.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that issue. So the other issue is, it's on Mamaroneck Avenue. And the problem is when you have people coming from White Plains coming down into Mamaroneck, there's a traffic light at Norwood Avenue. Familiar with that area, that intersection?
yeah,
And I called Westchester County, I talked to the Westchester County traffic engineer, Kevin Roseman. And he basically said it's an odd side intersection, they're aware of it, it's not lined up properly, it's dangerous. But I have to deal with you guys and the police as far as dealing with any potential accidents, because there was a situation, we almost got hit broadside, because what happens is when I'm coming northbound on Mamaroneck Avenue and all the residents on the Norwood Avenue side are making the left into that side of Arbor Heights, the left side. What happens is you have the traffic coming down and there's people pull in, not into the turning where the light is, they pull in before the light, right where the curb ends, and they're right there. So now they're totally blocking our view. When we're making a left into the oncoming traffic, we can't see anything unless you wait for the light to turn red, and then you could proceed. Now you got to understand there's no turning lane, so people from behind us are going to rear end us when you slow down and stop. They're beeping their horns. They want us to go. And I was with my father, and he panicked and he turned right into traffic. We almost got hit broadside. So the little history is back in 1990, 2014.
Can you stop moving it?
We had a situation where I called the Public Works and told them, guys, you got all the U-turns on Mamaroneck Avenue. Why don't you have one where people are making into Norwood Avenue? It's dangerous. So Tony Acavella put the sign up. So the sign was there. There's no issues. Everybody was happy. What happened was a car hit the sign, knocked it down. Called up Tony to put the sign back up. He said, I can't. You got to go in front of the traffic board because the people in the apartment houses, and the address is 12. You know the Crescent Apartments?
yeah.
1423. They like to be able to park in front of their house. So what happened was I had like 15 of my neighbors that agree, and there's even a policeman, Frank Maresco, who had the dog, Neil the dog. He even said it's a really dangerous situation. He brought it up to his fellow policeman. He said, this is dangerous. He says, go in front of the traffic board. I got 15 signatures. The traffic board, I went in front of the board. He says, well, that's all nice, but we have another petition. And they had 50 signatures from the apartment house. And they said, you're overriding. And I says, guys, this is a dangerous situation. What's the problem? People, there is a turning lane as you come to the traffic light. People on Soundview, if you're familiar with it, coming down Mamaroneck Avenue southbound, you come to Norwood Avenue light, there is a turning lane that you could stay in, and then the people can make a turn on Soundview Avenue. My point, if they need to make a U-turn to have access to their apartment house, they can go down Soundview, make the first left on James, make the first left on Travis, come right onto the avenue. It's safe, as opposed to having a potential situation where we cannot see, and this is how we access our house, and you got the oncoming traffic. So there's no U-turns allowed at all. Matter of fact, you guys are gonna, talking to the Kevin, he was telling me that they're putting a sign by a villa in Mamaroneck giving no U-turn. So that whole area doesn't allow any U-turns except for that one spot, which is extremely difficult. I mean, dangerous. Yes.
Can I just, Lieutenant Falcone, can I interject for a moment? But Villa doesn't have a turn lane. In other words, right at Villa, there's no turn lane. Whereas Knollwood, what you're saying, there is a turn lane going south.
No, there's
one to go.
turn lane
The
going
one to
in,
go in,
excuse me. There's a
one to
turn-
go into Soundview,
Soundview Avenue.
and then what you said, a turn, U-turn, you said.
There's no turn lane for the U-turn. They're basically stopped blocking traffic. We can't see them. They're stopped to make the U-turn right where the corner, where the curb ends. So
I'm just,
when we're turning,
what
up,
I'm doing,
we can't see
there's
them.
a difference between the two intersections. That's what I'm trying to say to you. There's a difference between the two intersections. At Villa, there is no turn lane. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That's all. I'm just trying to make that distinction for you.
Okay.
Time out. The Traffic Commission goes back to 2019. I've looked at some of the archived, the old traffic minutes. In April of 2014, this issue came up, and the Traffic Commission determined that it was appropriate to put a no U-turn sign, and they did. And according to Mr. Fraioli, that sign was knocked down and never put up. It seems to me the Traffic Commission previously has already rendered a decision about putting a no U-turn sign there. The sign was removed. I don't think it's difficult for us to just reinstate what was previously determined, that a no U-turn sign should be there. I don't think we have to go any further, my opinion.
I'd have to review it because I think that would have been if there was a no U-turn sign put up. I think that's a moving violation, right, Lieutenant?
Yeah, yes, it would be.
So that means it would have to.
Well,
have
at least
been-
Dan, the sign would have to be posted, obviously, for us to
Yeah.
enforce it.
No, but what I'm getting to is, it would have been promulgated and in the code. But what Mr. Frioli mentioned, is that when it was knocked down, he went to, speak with DPW and was informed that they couldn't put the sign back up. The only reason you couldn't put a sign back up would have been if the promulgation was rescinded. So
Right.
I can check the code to see what it says and to,
Exactly.
review some of those past resolutions and minutes to get a better understanding of that.
I agree.
Yeah, so,
Petition.
the short version is if it was promulgated, that means that the traffic commission would have recommended that it be promulgated. If it was rescinded after that, the traffic commission would have recommended that it be rescinded, I believe.
There was no, I read the minutes following April 2014. There was nothing in the traffic minutes that I read that had dealt with this issue thereafter.
Let me just, take a look through some of these, some of the board minutes on this, because I vaguely recall, some of these issues. I don't want to, speak without being a little more certain of some of the history here.
Yeah, that's okay, Dan. And thank you, Robert, for referencing the minutes from.
Hey, Dan, is it possible if the first sign was kind of put up without unofficially or?
It wouldn't have been by the village. That should not have happened.
Well, I mean, yeah, so we could
I
just,
mean,
we can just do a new regulation if we have to, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it would have to, again, because it's an enforceable item, it would have to be promulgated by the board so that the police have the legal authority to enforce it.
All right, well, Dan, let's double check the board minutes and the traffic minutes. Robert, if you have any reference ability or whether it's online or, yeah.
I
You can
can,
share that.
I can print out the April 2014 minutes where this was discussed, and I'll distribute it.
Thanks a ton, Robert. Like that's,
Good research, Robert.
You need my phone?
Well, yeah, why not?
914-656-3403. And you have my.
all right,
If I
perfect.
may, the only objection you may get is from the residents in the apartment house because they want the right to make the U-turn. And my issue is convenience should not be the reason why safety should be.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my point to them was, and I was shot down, I said, if they really want to make, if they need to park in the garage or park in the, or American Given, which they want to do, see, they can safely make the turning onto Soundview, which is designed for a turning lane with that traffic. So they can go past the light, but not affecting anybody turning up Knollwood. They can wait there when it's safe. They can make their left. It's a street, it's a village road, Soundview Avenue. You go right down, you make the first left, which is James, and then the next left, which is Travis. They come right out of the avenue again, or they can access the back of the apartment house garage. So there's no excuse that they can't do that.
If it's not safe, it's not safe. We don't do this stuff.
I thank you, folks.
Thank you, Jerry.
so
Thank
much.
you for doing your research. You obviously came
Can I
prepared.
just ask one more thing? So now that I'm walking my dog a lot, you got that little, when you're going on the side of the elementary school down the avenue south. There's the exit, where everybody's merging on from 95.
You can laugh.
No, because I'm telling you that I have to take my dog, take it up, look at the people, make eye contact. Can I go? They say yes, and then I gotta walk. Because I
Trust
run-
me, they know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
But not the other side has 2 stop signs. That's interesting. If you know where the cleaners was,
Yeah,
where the Jiffy Lube is, there's an access and then there's an exit right there. There's 2 stop signs. And then as further up, going towards more of the houses there, again, coming from 95, there's 2 stop signs. So they have stop signs on the right side. But for the kids to walk down the elementary school, there's no stop sign. It's kind of dangerous.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I
the stop
didn't-
sign-
It's not too close to the entrance of the highway.
No. The stop signs are right there when they're getting ready to merge onto the American Avenue. Full stop. Cars must stop. So and there should be kind of a crosswalk there, like a little pedestrian, so people realize that people are gonna walk. That's just a suggestion, but maybe putting a stop sign might, be a little more safe.
That's on
You're
our,
not the first person to say
I
it,
really
Jerry.
appreciate your time, folks, and thank you for volunteering your
Yeah.
service. I really appreciate
Do me a favor and consider becoming a traffic.
Yeah,
we have one open spot, right?
Yeah.
We have one open
They have an
spot.
open spot.
You could- You could start tonight.
He's
There's an
already
open
done half.
spot.
He's already done half.
I know, that's between him and Robert. man.
Folks, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert, thank you for coming up. Thank you, folks.
Just the tip, so I-
Thank you for your service, guys.
Thank you.
Right. I got that. That's our circling.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to
I
like-
mean, there's legitimate issues and
It's confusing, the whole
well
thing.
documented.
Right, together on the agenda, just describe.
But the next issue, and I don't think, well, we do have 8 attendees. But the next item, and we'll get to the attendees momentarily, there's one more new business item from Miss Sasha Sadakat with an issue of high speed on North Barry. So she wrote in, I live on North Barry between Halsted and Boston Post Road and routinely observe cars traveling down this block at dangerously high speeds. Moreover, cars fail to yield to pedestrians at the marked crosswalk where North Barry intersects with Brook, despite the signs instructing them to do so. It is very difficult to turn onto North Barry from Brook, given the parked cars obstructing the views combined with the cars traveling at high speeds. North Barry is a residential neighborhood full of children. It is in need of a stop sign in the middle block to slow traffic, force drivers to respect the crosswalk and be more in tune with their surroundings. All neighboring streets of a similar length have stop signs in the middle of the block. Melbourne, Beach, Carroll, Wagner, Frank, but North Barry does not. We ask to be treated the same as our neighbors. Dan, do you mind bringing up this intersection on Google Maps?
And I think I may have mentioned to the traffic commission in an email that one of the items that we are looking to discuss with the board is having those pedestrian actuated crossing signs, or the flashing signs that a pedestrian can press the button and they'll be able to have a sign that that'll flash, so motorists know that there is someone crossing. we talked about a number of intersections. And if you want to, you can, on the work session agenda, the board's work session agenda, it's been on
Yeah.
for the past 2 meetings. So there's a memo in there with cost estimates and 7 intersections that we've discussed installing these at, one of which being the Northbury Brook Avenue intersection. What I'll do is I'll let me bring that up, and then what I'll do is share a copy of the
In the meantime,
memo.
I see that Sasha's actually in the meeting, as is the gentleman by the name of Mario. I'm not sure if they're related. Mario has his hands up, but I'm just gonna promote Sasha, and perhaps she'll be able to comment on Mario. If not, we'll just hear from him next.
And you see the intersection
Yes.
with our
Brian,
crossing guard, the crosswalk.
ask Dan a question about what pedestrian actuated standing on a certain part of
In
the
order
sidewalk.
for it to turn on.
I'd like to ask him.
Yeah, go for it.
Dan,
Yes,
can you explain the pedestrian actuate, whatever that is? Does that mean someone has to be standing on a certain portion of the sidewalk for it to activate?
no, it's a push button.
Oh, push button.
Yeah, I'm gonna, if you give me one moment, Robert, I'm pulling up the work session agenda, and I will share the memo I prepared for the Board of Trustees.
Hi, Sasha.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Sorry for the delay there.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me to speak. Yeah, so, I live on North Barry, and, the issue is we have 2 young kids who live on the street. Obviously, Effie Bellows is right behind our house, and, we're just constantly seeing people speeding down the street. And, I know that there are a number of neighbors on the phone today that we really feel that it would be important to have a stop sign put on North Barry to help, control the traffic and encourage people to just be more respectful of the fact that there are, many children going to the elementary schools. There are a number of daycares and nursery schools. The Mamaroneck Community Nursery School is right around the corner. And, I think every one of our neighbors who we've spoken with, particularly those with young children, certainly feel that we could use a stop sign at this intersection.
Right now, there's just a crosswalk and a pedestrian sign there.
There's just a crosswalk, and there used to be a pedestrian sign that was in the middle of the street, and obviously during school hours, the traffic guard is there helping the kids cross the street, but there's no there's no yield to pedestrian sign at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, just for some context, I think it probably just got knocked over very often, which was probably causing a bit more of an issue than, you don't want a projectile flying at people if they're in that area. So here's the intersection. Do you want to pull up my memo?
Call
or-
David or whoever.
Yeah, pull up the map again.
Oh, okay, the map. Okay.
I'm familiar with this intersection, but not sure everyone else in the room too.
I'm very familiar with it. I live kind of down the street from there.
Oh, good.
Is that Brooke?
Yeah, that's Brooke.
Yeah, this is, see, Brook, North Barry.
Yeah, so I think, there is a stop sign, as you can see, from Brook onto North Barry. But, the issue is that there is no stop sign on either side of the street on North Barry to help mitigate the traffic. And I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I've been, pushing my baby in a stroller, waiting at the crosswalk and cars are just flying by with no regard for the fact that there's, you know, a parent with small children standing at the corner. You know, I've seen the same thing with people walking their dogs, and, you know, it's very problematic and upsetting to see how many close calls there are at this crosswalk, you know, particularly, as I mentioned, because it is so close to the school, and there are just, you know, countless numbers of families with young children living on the street.
No, it makes sense. And I live a couple blocks away, and I can also attest to the North Barry in general, and we've gotten complaints on the other side of Halsted, closer to Jefferson Avenue, of people traveling at significantly high speeds. And I see it's the same in that kind of Halsted to Boston Post Road. In, you know, in spite of the fact that there's a school there, that there's there's also restaurants, there's the, you know, the shopping center, and no, I can empathize with you.
I also feel like North Barry, living in Shore Acres, I think that's become a cut-through street, especially with the bridge out down behind the village. And that street where the kids enter the school by the cemetery, I go down that street almost every morning. That the traffic and the speed on that street is just too fast for where a school is. I agree with the resident.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, and I would agree as well. I think you're right that North Barry has become a cut-through street, and, you know, people are, despite the fact that there are signs that, you know, this is a school area, I don't feel that people are respecting those signs.
Dan, do you want to add any commentary on kind of like the stop sign versus, you know, the proposed pedestrian crosswalk solution that you have up here, like as to, you know, perhaps this type of solution might be more effective than stop signs, which, you know, you've seen in your experiences not always being kind of the correct answer, and people typically, you know, either ignore the stop sign or pick up speed shortly thereafter. Like,
Yeah, I mean, so, and not always the answer, you know, people want to hear, but, you know, and there are, you know, studies upon studies upon studies. You know, stop signs are not meant as speed control devices. They're really supposed to provide traffic control at intersections where you have, you know, accident of severe, you know, significant accident history, or, you know, visual obstructions. You know, what winds up happening is when you put a stop sign in, and I mean, if I was to ask everyone on the dais right now, do you come to a, you know, a full and complete stop for, you know, several seconds every time you come to a stop sign, or, you know, do you do the what they call the California stop, which is slow down a bit and then just move forward? You know, I think most people tend to, you know, they don't come to the full and complete stop. Also, you know, you're back up to full speed within 150 feet of that. And what you wind up seeing also is when people they perceive that they are slowed down, what they do is they actually go faster once they get past the stop sign to make up for that perceived loss of time. What I'd like to do, though, is show you some of the solution that we're trying to recommend to the board. And I'll, would you be okay with that, Brian? Or do you want to continue?
yeah, absolutely, because this will be interesting for other use cases. So.
I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share.
Just while you're transitioning, I do just want to make the point, though, that yes, we are talking about the speeding, but it's also just that cars are not stopping to safely let pedestrians cross the street. So, you know, it's not just a speeding issue, it's a safety issue. And I think many of the neighbors on the street would feel that it's an accident waiting to happen.
So what we're proposing is to have, you know, a basically a combination of, I believe, the second and third picture here. With this picture, you see that there are LEDs around the sign and then flashing yellows above the sign. So what this would be, it would be pedestrian actuated so that it would be a visual cue to the motorist that there's someone crossing, and I think they'd be more apt to whatever I say is driving is to a certain extent an unconscious activity. When you would have this type of device, the operation of it would make it a more conscious activity for the drivers, because they'll see this, they would know that there's someone crossing, because it would only be flashing when someone is crossing. It'd have to be set in motion by the pedestrian. So that's why we feel that this is an appropriate location. I'll just pull up I'm going to read off my memo for you. The 7 intersections that we are planning to recommend. We said Northbury Avenue, Jefferson Avenue. So that's near the firehouse and the Jefferson Avenue playground. At Northbury Avenue, Brook Street, which this intersection that we're talking about. A couple of Mamaroneck Avenue, Spencer Place, Mamaroneck Avenue, Palmer Avenue. Those are the some of the crosswalks along the central business district. Halsted and Florence Avenue, and then Fenimore Road Prospect, which I can give you an update on that project a little later on. And then Fenimore Road, Stanley Avenue, which is located near the Stanley Avenue playground. But as I mentioned, Northbury Avenue, Brook Street is one of the locations that we'd be looking to install this type of device at.
Dan,
Yes.
my concern is twofold. One, you have to have people trained to press the button to activate so you need parents will likely do it. Do you expect kids walking alone to do it? And what about people walking in between the block, not at the corner? You won't have that flashing light if somebody's walking in between the block.
So as far as the children, if they're not usually they're accompanied by parents, but during the school morning and afternoon peak periods, we have crossing guards out there as well. So the crossing guard can press the button to actuate it. As far as someone crossing mid-block, I mean, that's a problem that's endemic everywhere. I can't, the purpose of the crosswalk is because that's where people are supposed to walk. We've been trying to do a lot of education through safe routes to school, which I think you're going to ask about later, Robert. But that's education and understanding what your rights and responsibilities are as a pedestrian as well. But I can't protect, we try to protect people from themselves, but if someone is going to cross mid-block, not at a crosswalk, that's, I can't prevent someone from from doing the wrong thing.
And is there no system or version of the system in which there's a motion activated? In other words, that they can detect somebody in the crosswalk and then light up?
I can look into it. The one advantage to an actuated system, I think, would be that it would denote that there is a pedestrian there. I'd have to look into it because I'm not sure how sensitive some of those systems are. Like, for instance, I know with traffic signals, you have what they call loop systems that are embedded in the road, which are triggered when a car drives over it. But, that's, you're talking about just a several thousand pound vehicle and, a child who can weigh 30 to 40 pounds, 50 pounds. I don't know the level of technology about that, but I
So
could.
this is essentially a press button before crossing, right?
Correct.
And as a parent of elementary school kids, I certainly, my experience in walking in urban and suburban spaces is the kids actually fight over who's going to press the button. They're well aware of the fact that there's a button to press on a crosswalk. So I don't know how this would be any different. And children that are unaware of those things probably would not be moving around town alone. So I think it's part of the education process that is likely happening and among our elementary school population on a pretty widespread basis.
One quick point before we give Mario, KDR, and Delia a chance to speak. I think we have the lieutenant on the line. Would we be able to get an assessment of speeding infractions and other dangerous driving on North Barry and potentially ask for an increase of enforcement? Because it seems like this is systemic, even aside from whether it's a stop sign, whether it's a pedestrian sign, like it seems like that with the police officers may be able to help too. Well, we could follow up on that after, but just a thought.
Yeah, and one of the other issues I think has been mentioned is, the visual obstructions that are caused by vehicles that are parked in the vicinity of that intersection on North Berry Avenue, which I think another concern, which I've seen in addition to the vehicles, is just the shrubbery that is at those corners as well, because you can remove the car, but if the shrub's still there, that's almost as bad as the vehicle obstruction caused by a vehicle, if not worse.
Thanks, Dan. I'm going to allow Mario to speak first. He was the first to raise his hand. Hey, Mario.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, you sound perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you guys for, for paying attention to this issue. I think one of the big problems we have with this intersection is that Effie Bellows is right at the end of the street. So it really gets a lot of foot traffic from students going to and from school. And while for a majority of the time, the crossing guard is doing a great job, and she'll tell you that people will not stop unless she really shoves that stop sign out. There are a fair amount of students that go a little bit early or return home a little bit late. So, it's not always a perfect situation. And I think, like the other resident mentioned, there's moms with their with their babies and strollers and whatnot. So it's something that's sort of always on our minds. And just so you guys understand, like if you look at the intersection on Google Maps, I happen to live in that yellow house that's right there in the corner. And since we're all working from home, my office actually faces the intersection, and I see that there's just tons of cars that are speeding at really atrocious speeds sometimes. So, we're not really sure what to do about it. We're not traffic engineers like you guys might be. I know that the police have had that the monitoring station out there, the speed monitoring station, so they may have data on what are some of the velocities that they've noticed. If you click on the map and just go to the right on Brook Street and turn back to the intersection, you'll see.
Can you see it? I just want to make sure, because I went from a different Chrome
Yeah,
tab to another.
if you just go onto Brook for a second, just click one click onto Brook, and then turn back to the intersection. I think you'll see Yeah, maybe a little bit back. In any case, the shrubs are definitely an issue. You can see the police sign happens to be there in that shot. So I don't know. I mean, at one point, like the other resident Sasha mentioned, there was that sign that was in the middle of the street, that weighted rubber sign. But and I used to put it back almost every day because it would get pummeled by the cars on a regular basis. So listen, we appreciate whatever you guys can do. I don't know if, a speed bump is an option. I definitely think at least one or two of the parking spots could be removed. But ideally, we'd love to see a stop sign just because there are just so many students that are going through that intersection every day. And there's Carvel on the other side of that block as well. So even on the weekends, there's a lot of kids that, go to and from the ice cream store. So it just, food for thought.
Brian, can I address the issue of speed hump or speed bump?
Yeah, go for it.
So we've talked about a pilot program to put speed bumps in. The appropriate location for them is typically on smaller residential roads. Northbury Avenue is known as what is known as a collector road. So what a collector road does is that it's where the residential streets flow to, and that street takes you to the main roadways. So for instance, Northbury Avenue, you have traffic from Brook, I think Brook Street, and then everything kind of goes to Brook, it goes to Northbury, and Northbury Avenue connects Post Road to Halsted Avenue, and then goes around to Mamaroneck Avenue. So it's an important road for our emergency vehicles. And that's why you typically don't see speed humps on roads that are going to be more heavily trafficked by emergency vehicles.
No, thanks, Dan.
Yep.
And thank you, Mario. That's good perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think I may have shown this to you in the past. Some of the work we did at the intersection of, or what we did through code enforcement efforts at the intersection of Beach and Tompkins, where we were able to have the property owner clear up a major visual obstruction. Do you mind if I'm gonna try and pull that up? I'm gonna just stop sharing my screen so I don't make you dizzy. You're going all over the place.
Dan, while you do that, do you mind if I allow KBR to speak?
You're the chair. You can. I do not run the meeting.
All right, no, sorry, I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. I'm gonna allow KBR.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for bringing this topic to the meeting tonight. I am a resident on Melbourne Avenue with two kids who walk to school, to Effie Bellows every day and over to the middle school. And I just wanted to echo Sasha's concerns that she raised earlier. I think something that's worth keeping in mind is that, Union, Melbourne, Beach are all filled with students who walk to the schools every day. That's one of the benefits of our community, is that the kids do get to walk to school. We're not a bus community. And in a lot of ways, there's a lot of benefits to that. But I would also note when you pulled up the photo of on Google Maps of the intersection, the hardest working woman in Mamaroneck is in that photo, and that's Clara, the crossing guard. And I think she has one of the most difficult jobs in the neighborhood, keeping the kids safe. So I just wanted to sort of echo the concerns of a lot of the other parents who are on the call tonight, that I don't know that the flashing crossing sign would be of much help from what I've experienced on that block. people don't seem to care too much about slowing down or even the crossing lane that is even in there today. I think the stop sign is probably a little bit more official for a lot of the drivers who are already disregarding things like that. The sign that was already in the middle of the intersection to begin with. So it just feels a bit more formal. It feels like something that people have to adhere to, where the flashing crossing sign feels like something that is almost optional for a lot of drivers. So my preference is a stop sign. I'm not an engineer, as somebody else also noted on the call earlier, but I did want to echo some of the other parents' concerns and share my thoughts. Thank you.
Appreciate the perspective. I'm going to promote Delia.
Brian, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen again to show what we were able to accomplish at Beach or Tompkins and Beach Avenue.
Okay. And then sorry,
Yeah.
Delia.
So
Not
I
a
mean,
problem. Go ahead,
yeah,
Dan.
this is what the intersection looked like in August of 2013. It's the August of 2013. You can see it was, pretty high hedgerow that kind of was really couldn't see anything that was over here. And this is what it looks like as of October of last year, where they were able to basically remove all those hedges, and you have a much clearer view of the traffic coming down Beach Avenue. So I'm not saying it's the only approach, but I think something, looking at some of those visual obstructions and trying to clear up the intersection is something that we can pursue. And that, just, cleaning up the hedges is something we can work through with our code enforcement division.
No, I appreciate that. All right, Delia, feel free.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you very much for your efforts. I appreciate everyone's input and every solution in order to resolve the current issue. It happens that I live in the neighborhood on Melbourne. I have 2 kids. What's important to note in terms of traffic, children and adults using that particular intersection is that there is sort of, a connection to all the schools. They are on the other side of North Barrie. So let's recognize that. Daniel Warren, Effie Bellows, and middle school, high school are on that side. So it's very important for us when you talk about children, and as I said, other kids and adults as well, to recognize that there is a major crossing point. Now, coming to the solution, I personally favor the stop, and I'll explain why. We're trying in here to drive as much awareness as we can in front of the drivers. While we're trying very hard to educate, to inform the kids to push the button, the residents to cut their bushes and shrubs, etc., our main effort is to get the drivers' awareness in place to slow down, to behave responsibly. The stop sign hopefully, achieves that, and that's what we've been trying to do that for years. Using new methods of awareness are very welcome from my point of view, but gradually. So I have observed the introduction of stop in front of Dan's Cavis, and I have seen how much time it takes for some people to obey. There are still people crossing there and not obeying the stop sign. So I'm afraid that if we don't put a stop sign in here, introduction of something else is going to have very little benefit. With that being said, I welcome all the solutions, all the discussions, all the input in order to achieve a safer neighborhood. And it's not only for the little kids, it's for the adults, for elders, for people with pets, etc. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delia. Thanks for the perspective. I'm going to promote Tim Grant.
Hello, everyone. This is Tim Grant. Thank you again for considering this issue. I very much appreciate your time and attention here. I totally agree with all my neighbors. I don't want to repeat their points. I just wanted to add that I think one reason that a lot of the neighbors feel pretty strongly that a stop sign is the best solution here is because when we look to our neighboring streets that also stretch from approximately Boston Post Road to Halsted, such as Melbourne, Beach, Carroll, Wagner, and Frank, they all do have stop signs in the middle of their streets, which do seem to have the effect of slowing traffic and making those streets much safer for pedestrians. So I think it's looking around at our neighbors' streets and seeing how well stop signs do work mid-block, which is what makes us in favor of a similar stop sign in the middle of our block as well, just as our neighboring streets do. And as was noted, the crossing guard, it does help magnificently, and she's fantastic. But the ice cream shop does drive a lot of foot traffic to on our block when school is not in session. And also there's a new aftercare program that's operated out of Effie Bellows, which runs until 6 p.m., which is, far after the crossing guard has left her post. So I just wanted to offer those additional points.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to promote Ruth to talk. Ruth, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. I live on North Berry Avenue as well. I have 2 small children, and I just sort of wanted to echo what everyone else is saying. I really appreciate you guys addressing this issue. I really see trimming the hedges and a stop sign as being kind of 2 separate issues. The hedges, trimming them, I think would be great. I think it would help the traffic and pulling out from Brook and maybe make that a bit safer. But I really think the stop sign is the only way to reinforce the speed. I think unless Clara is there with the children and helping them along, most cars just don't even slow down. And I've been crossing with my kids before, and the cars just like zoom through, even if you're like very close to the road. So I wanted to make sure that I was adding my voice to the conversation as well. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely, Ruth. Thank you for making the time and waiting. And last, we have Mark. Mark, you have the floor.
Hello, I think I'm off mute at this point.
Yep.
Great. My name is Mark Broneman. I live on Melbourne. Hopefully everybody can hear me well.
Yep.
And I'd like to echo my support for the stop sign as well. I feel like, there is already a crosswalk which people are supposed to respect because pedestrians should have the right of way, plus the big yellow sign there as well. I don't feel like a sign saying this is still a crosswalk is going to aid the matter anymore. I think that the people do slow down. I agree they don't necessarily stop for the appropriate time at stop signs, but it does seem to slow people down. And Barry is the only street in the area without that. In addition, the only places where you can actually cross, where you are supposed to cross, would be either at Halsted, and Barry, or Boston Post Road and Barry. And you've got that one little place in there, at Brook with the crosswalk there, but there is no stop sign. I walk my son to school to Bellows, and we've had enough issues where the cars don't always, slow down in time or even stop for the crossing guard. So again, I'd like to echo my support for the stop sign and, the shrubbery as well. Helps a lot for turning out of Brook or turning onto Brook, but it doesn't necessarily help with the pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Dan, do we have any data that would point to the efficacy of alternatives to stop signs? So I understand the argument for consistency across streets. I'm not sure if I believe that stop signs are effective. And I know what the mantra is that cars don't typically stop at stop signs, they speed up, etc. But do we have any data that would back that, that theory or hypothesis? Or
I can, I can provide you studies that, from engineers that talk about that, that deal with the use of stop signs as speed control devices. I can certainly provide you with information on that.
No, I'd appreciate that, because I hear the residents and I want to like empathize with them totally, especially being a resident in the area. But you know, personally, like I tend to go to where what the data is showing and what the SMEs or subject matter experts have shown in doing their studies. And ultimately, that's what's going to be best for the residents. I mean, you know, irregardless of stop signs being everywhere else. Then again, like I'm not completely tabling, you know, their thoughts. I just think it requires a little bit more analysis and review of these studies, and perhaps there's some sort of solution that we can come to. I think that enforcement is going to help. I think, you know, perhaps if there's any data that we could show the lack of efficacy in the other areas in the neighboring streets is something that we could point to as well. Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I can look at that. I think the issue is going to be is that because you know, Northbury Avenue is the collector road, which does connect Post Road and Halsted. You know, you know, Melbourne and Union go to Tompkins, then you have to kind of circle around to get to Post Road. There's going to be a lot more traffic volume on Northbury Avenue as compared to those other streets.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes, you know, I would be interested in seeing, you know, the metrics behind all of this. It's certainly great, but, you know, the pedestrian improvements I've seen in other places where, you know, they might have stop signs or they may not, they talk about narrowing the road or like, you know, providing other cues and stuff like that. Area itself is already pretty narrow. And, you know, I mean, I walk there frequently, you know, and I'll say from my own perspective, you know, around here, what people are used to, you know, is encountering a stop sign. And I just don't feel like the crosswalk itself is going to be as effective as metrics may lead. So, I mean, I would love to see the information there. You know, it'd be very interesting to see, but I'd also like to see like a real comparison there, like, because, you know, without enforcement, you know, whether it's a camera or whatever, on whether people actually yield to pedestrians there on the weekend or outside the regular hours, you know, it's difficult for me to feel like comfortable that a pedestrian crossing sign is going to do better than a stop sign.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I hear you, and it's what folks are conditioned to see and what they also experience, and also it's doing right by the neighborhood too. So I totally get that. I don't want to go all analytical and go, you know, robot mind, and put that aside because I appreciate all of you dialing in and voicing your concerns. Does anyone?
I'm wondering, Brian, if we know if these two solutions are mutually exclusive. Is it one or the other? Could you do both?
I think that may be a bit confusing to have, you know, two different traffic control devices at an intersection. Because, you know, usually again, I'll look into it, but my gut instinct is that it may be a bit confusing to have two different sign types at the same intersection.
All right, so I mean, we totally acknowledge that there's a situation here that needs to be remedied. I don't think we have a solution right here and now. We have a couple of next steps to take, including working with the police department, as well as digging up some of those studies and looking at other solutions and continuing the conversation. Perhaps we can also speak with our traffic consultant and get her input as well. You know, so yeah, for everyone on the line, we totally hear you. We'll get to a solution sooner rather than later. We just don't have it right now on the phone, but that doesn't mean that this issue is going away. No. That KBR.
Hi, can you hear me? I think I can.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. agree on most of that. I think what keep hearing a lot of about the stop sign is that it doesn't necessarily slow down speeds. And I understand that, but as we've been talking tonight, I've been doing a little bit of research over here as well. I think the thing to keep in mind is like at the end of the day, we also want the kids to just be able to cross the street. The stop sign does do that. Because it allows them a moment, it allows a car a moment to pause. The cars are not gonna pause with a flashing light. And so I think like that's actually potentially more important than actually slowing down the speeds, because you do have a stoplight at Halsted and North Berry. You have another stoplight at Boston Post Road and North Berry. So the speed is not going to increase that significantly. If you put a stop sign in the middle of the road, they have to pause. And that's actually what we really are looking for, is a way for the kids to safely walk across the street.
No, absolutely. I think our point is that there are potentially other solutions that provide a safer means for kids to cross the street as opposed to a stop sign. That's all. Like,
And how long does it take for us to get to a solution? Like, appreciate all the data points, but then like, what are the actions that come out after this? And how long does that normally take?
it's a good question. So, I mean, this is something that doesn't have to wait for our next meeting. Like, we can discuss it over email. We could discuss it over a call.
Just one piece of advice, if you could have conversations offline, it shouldn't include a majority of the members of the commission, because then you're delving into areas of the open meetings law. So,
No,
you may-
just,
yeah.
yeah, well, I mean,
Dan, I have or Brian, Dan, I have a question.
yeah, go for it.
So, you know, I mean, clearly there's concern in the community that is understandable and justified. You know, you have a lot of concerned parents. But I guess my question is, what is the ETA, Dan, on getting that crossing there at Berry and Brook for that light to install? Because I agree with what folks are saying. Yeah, it's great to make data-driven decisions, but you know, national data extrapolated to local circumstances don't always make the most sense. But let's be honest, it's sometimes the best thing that we have to go off of. But is there a way to know when that interactive crosswalk is going to be implemented, and to somehow measure the impact of that in some type of pre-post test fashion?
I'm not prepared to answer that right now, just because I don't know what, first of all, we would need to, discuss with the board, get funding to move forward with a project like that. I know that with, those three famous words of the last 6 months, supply chain issues, I just don't know what the timeframe would be to actually get the material in. So let me look into that, and I can follow up on that question.
So Dan, is that, just to follow up on that, is that fund because we have partial funding for some of those pieces, like at the Fenimore Avenue crossings, but the Berry one is not funded, or are they bundled into one thing? I'm just not clear on that, I guess.
So the Fenimore prospect, there's funding. We funding for the construction of the intersection improvements, the bulb outs, the plantings, and the paint, the lane markings. Subsequent to designing that, we said that we thought that we could buttress the improvements with something like this, the crosswalk signals. But again, we haven't actually received funding for that yet. For Fenimore project, we have funding for the actual construction of that.
Thank you so much, Dan, for clarifying that. It's really helpful.
Let me just give you the quick update on that project real quick. So the contractor who's doing our sidewalks on Waverly Avenue and East Prospect Avenue, he will be doing that work as well. But that's gonna be the last stage of work he does. I'm gonna issue a notice to proceed to him. He's looking to start his work in the village on May 23rd. So, that work will be done sometime this summer.
Thanks, Dan. This is gonna be the last person. We have to move on, but Delia, you have the floor. You just have to unmute.
I'm not sure if you can hear me. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry about that. Very quick one from my side. Allow me to make a little comparison with the field I'm working in. It's always very tempted to provide a generic solution. And I feel for, for you, Dan, that you're trying to, get 7 items implemented at once and sort of, do all at once with one big win. But at the same time, practicality in consideration and all of that, wouldn't be easier to put a stop sign and later on upgrade. And that's my word, if I may say so. To me personally, it seems much simpler to put just, the stop poles there and assess the implementation of that rather than waiting for months and months for a more sophisticated solution that, some of us probably don't favor in here, but the stop is a well-known, well-tried solution for what we're trying to accomplish in here. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. So if we had an outcome, if we put a stop sign right there, then we would make the community happy. That's the.
I'm also hearing from Dan that
Yeah.
the other device may take some time, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would just want to, just put it out there that, if that's an avenue to pursue, again, I think the data shows that, they aren't effective speed control devices. So I wouldn't, if there's an issue with, crossings and trying to clean up visual obstructions, that's kind of the justification for that. I wouldn't, recommend that it be looked at as a speed control device, but rather a tool to promote or to try to think of the right words to provide certainty as to right of way at certain intersections. That's kind of the that's how I would phrase it. Yeah, 'cause I don't want the expectation that it does work as a speed control device. I'm just putting it out there.
But there is a right-of-way concern here, right? Dan, is that what you're suggesting?
I mean, I think that's what I'm hearing, but again, I don't know what the, what the accident history shows. And but again, that's how I would frame the discussion, if that's an avenue to pursue. I just don't want it to be, part of a public record that it's being done to, slow down vehicles. 'Cause I'm just, I get to be a little ultra conservative and the more in this business is from liability issues. I don't want someone to, get into an accident and say, oh, you didn't install the stop sign for the right reason, something like that. So,
Hey, Dan,
yes.
is it, if it comes down to it and we can't get the pedestrian devices in a timely fashion, is it fair to say that a stop sign is better than nothing?
I don't know. again, you know, I don't know what the accident history is out there. Yeah, I always, you know, fear the law of unintended consequences. But,
right.
you know, again, I would never say it's being done to slow down vehicles.
Okay. No, thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
And obviously, thank you to the community for taking the time out of a Tuesday to dial in, write in, etc. So thank you very much. There's one other person we haven't heard from. I'm not sure if it's the same issue or a
Okay,
separate
I'll
issue.
tell you. Mr. Littman is here for the Hawthorne Gardens.
Oh,
garage.
the parking?
He needs to stand.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mentioned I'm gonna get that resolution for the next meeting. I just been a bit tied up with other items, but I did, I was out there, I think maybe, was it end of February, early March? With Mr. Littman and Ms.
Jurgen.
Jurgen, I'm sorry. And we reviewed the site. I took measurements. But yeah, I'll let Mr. Littman follow up. I defer to Mr. Littman.
Richard, you should be able to speak if you come off mute. Richard? Perhaps he stepped away, but it's on record that Dan's gonna have that follow-up. Yes.
What I'll do, I can give Mr. Littman a call tomorrow.
Thank you, Dan. All right, so that covers new business as well as the folks that dialed in either to support new business or old business. I guess we should go through, especially some of the more pressing old business items, and we could start from the top with the Stanley Avenue and Mount Pleasant, the blind turn. And I know, Laura, you mentioned driving past that, and I think a couple of others of us as well. I think that situation warrants some type of action, whether it's peeling back or removing some of the cars, the parking, perhaps to start. Anyone else on the commission have any compelling thoughts?
Would you mind if I interject? Can you hear me? Because I'm not sure if this is really listening. But I had an experience last evening in regard to driving on Mount Pleasant North and having Stanley Avenue on my right-hand side. I do agree with the residents. They do need to minus out the corner parking on both the left and right side. It's a blind spot, which entails the vehicle to pull out at a rate of speed where it's actually trying to get into the street before it actually views right or left. And I had the experience where I had to actually get out of the vehicle's way and go into oncoming traffic to avoid this vehicle's left-hand turn. So I mirror the residents' concern, and I agree that spots need to be peeled away and have a better visual and a better formatted stop sign and marked no parking area for the safety concern.
No, I agree with Laura. Even as just to start.
Yeah, I agree. I've been, since our last meeting, I think many of you know that I'm back commuting in the city, and I walk, that's my route I take every day down Mount Pleasant. And so I've been really thinking about it on the way to work and then in the evening coming home. And there never seems to be a really good moment when I cross that. There's some blind spots, and when cars are parked there, it's really impossible. And everyone's kind of trying to figure out how to get out of there and having to really accelerate. You have people coming down the hill. I mean, it's just, it never looks good.
Dan, to make that recommendation, is there anything particular, that given that it's parking, or can we just make the recommendation to the board?
So it would have to be a no parking restriction. I would just, what you should do is make a motion with a second and have a vote on the recommendation, which I spoke to Laura last evening. I think Laura, you had mentioned something like the 2 spaces on Mount Pleasant Avenue on either side of the Stanley Avenue intersection. Was that what you were
Yes.
talking about last night?
There's the 2 spaces that, as you come to the stop, and you would either make your right or your left, you have to, at the very least, remove 2 spaces on Mount Pleasant to your left and 2 spaces on Mount Pleasant to your right. But if you're at Stanley Avenue, you do have your stop sign on your right, you need to pull in and have no parking, from the corner in from Mount Pleasant onto Stanley, coming into Stanley, or you'll still have that same issue.
Okay,
So-
so, sorry.
It would be 2 spots on Mount Pleasant, 2 spots on Stanley, and then you'd go to your right and another 2 spots on Mount Pleasant. So it'd be 6 altogether.
So, and I can't remember off the top of my head, and maybe, Lieutenant Falcone may recall this better. Unless there's a sign specifically allowing parking, you're not allowed to park within, it's either 15 or 30 feet of a stop sign. So if there's a stop sign, state law does not allow you to park within a specified amount.
Right, but I agree. You're right, but there's only one stop sign. Then you have the 3 other sections that don't have a stop sign, and you have parking, but it's a corner on both ends.
No, what I was getting to is you don't necessarily need to establish a parking restriction on Stanley Avenue in the vicinity of the stop sign.
Correct.
Well,
Because
it
state
is
law-
painted out. It is painted out, Dan, that it says no parking there. Doesn't, I don't know if it's necessarily an official paint out,
Let me take a look at the street.
but
view.
yeah, I noticed it because there's a fire, I think, no, it's not a fire hydrant, but there's a box painted right before the stop sign. And it's definitely not 15 feet. It's more like 8 or 10. And there's a box there that says no parking. But it again doesn't seem like it's far enough back from the stop sign in my recollection.
Okay, so at the intersection, and I'll just show it because a picture being worth 1,000 words. So I think you can all see that. So there's a fire hydrant next to the stop sign. So that no parking is for the because of the hydrant. So so is the recommendation to go even further back than what's already painted out?
Yes, to remove that blue vehicle, but if you go to your left,
I think it's the other side.
The other side, that's Stanley.
if you go to your left, you see where,
Oh, these 2 vehicles?
yes, see the SUV
Okay.
or the pickup truck?
The pickup truck and it looks like a Subaru Outback, just like mine. Except mine is prettier.
At the very least, that black pickup has to be a no parking, and then when you go around the corner, you have to remove 2 spots because he or she cannot see when you are at that stop sign. They're pulling themselves out into the street or just taking a chance and going without looking because they can't see.
Okay, so so it's basically, what we could, so basically moving that no parking here to corner up about 18 feet or so. So there should be an existing restriction already on, I guess it would be the north side of Stanley Avenue. I guess it probably says something like, no parking, for a length of 20 feet or so. So you want to make it, maybe, 30 feet or another 40 feet, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
And then I guess we have these two metered parking spaces. So I'm assuming this is a no parking.
That is a no parking. I think yeah. And so I think that needs to be moved back.
Okay.
Yes.
Then that would be the same for these two parking spaces. I don't know if did you get a chance to talk to the proprietors of these shops, because they may have a.
Well, I would have to move them off the corner a little if there's a possibility where you can make a designated spots. So they know they're parking without having to take up one spot or two spots or trying to fit 4 cars in a 2-spot location.
So
And I think that's what is
there is a
happening.
parking meter there. So usually where we have parking meters, we have painted parking stalls. This is from October 2021, so I don't really see any.
There are none.
No, they're there. I took a picture of it the other day, but I'm looking on my phone right now. There's actually 2 meters there now. It looks like a double meter. Where that single one is. Did we put in double meters recently?
Are there lines on the street or?
No, there's no lines on the street. It looks like that the meter has the orange paint out there, but it was never like, it was just like one stripe of spray paint right where they put the new meter in, the double meter, and they put an orange line, but it hasn't been painted out.
Okay, so that's something, that's an administrative item to, make sure those parking stalls get painted. So what, I mean, at the very least, it looks like this car would be able to pull forward by about a lot.
5 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so I can follow up on that item with Public Works.
Dan,
Yes.
can I just clarify? Did we just talk about removing the 2 parking spaces on Stanley?
I think it was this one parking space. where
I
the
don't understand how those 2 vehicles are creating visibility issues when you're coming off Stanley. I don't understand.
I think that was.
Because your line of sight kind of travels through that portico, what is that? That portico, what is that breezeway thing? I think that's why you can kind of see through there.
But if you're at the line where the stop sign is, you're well past those cars. So I don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, but it gives you a line of sight, I think. I mean, as you're approaching that intersection, your eye travels to the left to see oncoming traffic, right?
But you have to stop at the stop sign.
That's right.
When you stop at the stop sign, you're past the car.
Well, can I offer a suggestion? If
Day, but on an imperfect day, a vehicle is going to be bumped to the corner or not parked in that situation and moved back where you're causing, and that's what happened to me the last evening.
So the car was parked out to the corner?
Past the sewer. Correct.
Right, that was illegal.
Which is happening quite often more than not, where you're finding cars corner to corner throughout the village. And And the only reason why I don't think I got into a car accident particularly is because we had this conversation. So I was pretty aware. If I wasn't aware, I would have been in a situation. Because the gentleman pulling out was just pulling out because he was inched out past the car because he couldn't see on both directions, and he basically applied pressure to his gas pedal and pushing me across the WO line.
This begs the question, is a no parking sign the right type of sign? Because in one of the Google images, and I think the resident brought up the fact that you have a lot of delivery trucks that stop there. You're still gonna have that problem even with the no parking, because you're gonna have the delivery still
Well-
using that real estate.
So a delivery truck may, again, I don't know how you would, whether that would be considered parking or standing. They're two different things. So no, you know,
Yeah, my point is, should it be no standing from here to corner rather than no parking? Because technically the delivery driver can make the case like, oh, I was only here. I think the law is what, 2-minute stop, something like that. If it's no standing, then they cannot make a stop to make a delivery. I mean, it's making life harder for our friends at FedEx, Amazon, UPS, but it's in the interest of safety.
It's a good point.
maybe for clarity purposes, would you want to consider just, two discrete recommendations? One about the 2 parking spaces on Mount Pleasant Avenue. And then a different recommendation about the Stanley Avenue. 'Cause what I'm hearing, I think, is that there tends to be agreement about the parking spaces on Mount Pleasant Avenue. But there may be a different discussion about the Stanley Avenue side of this.
Yeah, I agree, but I think the Mount Pleasant's a lot more cool cut, where there's more agreement there. So I can make a motion to get to, do we have to give the exact specs on the number of feet, or just?
I would say that the 2 meter parking spaces closest to Stanley Avenue.
Okay, I'll make a motion to,
Recommendation, yeah.
I'll make a motion for the traffic commission to make a recommendation to the board to remove the 2 meter parking spots on Mount Pleasant Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, perfect. And then on Stanley, how many spots was it, Dan? 1 or 2?
Well, I was a little confused. I think there's 2 discussions. First is, should that no parking restriction be changed to a no standing restriction? And then should it be extended to cover the approximate area where this black truck is parked? Is that a fair assessment of the conversation?
Yeah.
You know, but is there a difference of opinion on that, Robert?
I'll go with whatever the majority, I was confused by it, but I'll go with whatever the majority wants to do as far as that location is concerned.
I don't see why how that parking spot needs to be removed. If there's enough space, I'd like the no standing idea. Like Robert, you brought up before, once you're stopped at the stop sign, that car is not blocking the view.
But Laura apparently had a different experience, so I understand. So I'm giving credence to her personal experience there. And that's why I'm willing to do what she suggests if it really had an impact.
Would it be helpful to find a medium and possibly paint lines in that area so we could at least enforce those cars on that corner and start there?
Or rather than remove the spot, we could make it the no standing just from that sign. That would keep cars, and it would ensure that cars would not be stopping beyond that point, or it would be against the law to do so.
I think at the very least, that's place to start.
Yeah. And we don't have.
I
to-
agree with that.
Okay. All right, well, I'll make a motion to to leave the parking spots in place, but change the sign so it's no standing from that location to the corner to prevent pickups and drop-offs and really any obstruction of people's view.
I'll go with that. I'll second that.
All in favor?
I,
Okay, perfect. So I think that's a good start, to be honest with you.
Brian, depending on what they do with the lot on the west side of Mount Pleasant, eventually, it's not the last you're going to hear of that intersection. That may
This lovely
I mean, if some.
scenic addition to the village.
Yeah, interestingly enough, as we were coming in, I couldn't get up Mount Pleasant because unfortunately someone had an accident going right into the post office, right outside the post office. So
That's right.
That's that's what I heard.
yeah,
Brian, I have one more thing to say about this intersection. Have we given up on the idea of how to cross that intersection?
I don't think you even discussed that, but it's a good point.
Manually, I mean, I bike there, I try to cross it all the time. Right now, I guess, Ryan, you do the same thing, is you have to make that left on Mount Pleasant from Stanley, then walk down and then cross by Mamaroneck Avenue, but
Yeah,
so
I
many
think
people
that
expected you just go across. It's faster, and I don't know about putting a crosswalk there, but
I recall that our traffic engineer may have looked at this a couple of years ago and had some thoughts on it. But I'd have to talk to him about that. You know, that's part of a larger, project we'd like to do at some point, which is clean up the crossings at the Mount Pleasant, Halsted, Mamaroneck, Bishop intersection. But that's something that we need the county approval for, because they own the intersection. Because Mount Pleasant Avenue is a county, this section of Mount Pleasant Avenue is a county road. But I seem to recall that he did look at something for this intersection, so I'll ask him about it.
thank you. Yeah, a lot of people try to cross it all the time. and A lot of people try to
I
cross it.
can't imagine.
It's hard to cross that street. And it's-
Yeah, I mean,
Just in the interest of time, because I know the meeting is running long, I wanted to give the floor to Robert. I know there's a couple things that he wanted to talk about. So, Robert?
Thank you. I'll try to be short and brief. So I talked about the archive minutes going back to 2009. And I read over most of them. And one thing that became clear to me is that we're revisiting the same issues that were discussed 10 and 12 years ago. And the problem is that we're addressing them brand new when they were addressed thoroughly years ago. And now for some reason, they're coming back on the plate. And my bad analogy to this is it's like a polio vaccine that was discovered, and we're inventing the polio vaccine every 10 years. That's a bad analogy, but you get my point that why we, and I think the problem is that we don't have a record of these previous issues that we've discussed so that we can refer back. They're hidden in these, minutes that unless you go through them individually. So that's something we can address perhaps later on. The second issue is the school routes, safe routes to school. I realized looking at the April meeting that we had, that Brian actually discussed it. I guess I wasn't paying attention. And I'm glad that he brought that up and that he attended the meeting. And the school Safe Routes to School is a federally funded program that addresses exactly what it says, trying to make routes that kids use to get is safe and federally funded. And I've spoken to the two ladies that are part of that group, and I'm hoping that we can involve them specifically in our Rockland Avenue location, which I think we all agree requires some effort. So going forward, perhaps Brian can, since Brian has met with them, he can communicate with them and bring them in to try to come to some reasonable solution for Rockland Avenue. That's number two. Oh, the minutes that Michael took for March were extremely detailed, and he had a whole list of action items that I think we need to go over. I don't think we've had enough time this evening to do it, but I think his minutes were so thorough and pointed out. So we really haven't resolved many of the locations that we've been asked to address. And I'm not sure how we go about doing that efficiently and what was the word you used?
Efficacy.
Efficacy, good word. So I'm hoping that we can go back to Michael's minutes perhaps at our next meeting and go through some of those action items that he pointed out that we need to hash over before we come to solutions on how to resolve those particular locations.
No, I agree. I just, I think, I thought we'd have a chance today, given that there were only 2 or 3 issues and then the community.
Right,
just-
so my,
yeah.
my fourth item, as much as we want to give everybody time to, Lou commented on something at our first meeting, which I think I agree with. He said sometimes we give too much time for discussion, and we're probably better off if we want to cover enough. We have too many issues to deal with at one time, that perhaps we, and I think Ryan mentioned it also, that we need to kind of be more careful about the time that we allot to a particular subject. And if it means that we have enough information, I don't think we necessarily need to hear from people 2 or 3 times. I'm not being critical. I think everyone deserves an opportunity to speak, but in order for us to address all the issues that we have on our plate, we certainly need to be more careful about allotting time for each of those issues. And the last item is something that I talked about the last time about, trying to achieve our 7th member. And you were going to speak to the village
I sent the
manager,
message to him, yeah.
and Lou's hopefully going to follow up. So I'd like to know if there's been any resolution to that so that we can finally get our 7th member.
I haven't heard from Jerry, but I can follow up with him again.
Do you have anything? No?
I just wanted to add one thing, Robert. I think that's the timekeeping is really I think important here. And I guess I keep bringing it up, but it's also a function of not like we're trying to limit people or not hear them or anything like this. To the contrary, we're subject to open meetings law. We have almost 0 time to ever really discuss and deliberate, right? And so I think we're getting really backlogged because we're always jumping into a new agenda when we have no time, so we can't have a discussion about what we want to do. And so I think we need to carve out time for either rethink the agenda, and I've done this, and Lou and others, I don't know, but sometimes I've backed into agendas where we go into old business first.
That's a good point. And what's interesting is it was a very light docket. We only had 2 new business items.
Yeah.
But he spent an hour and a half on those 2 or 3.
And we have what, 18 old business items?
I tried to limit people. I felt like you're getting beaten up a bit, and I just wanted to give them a chance to.
People listen. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, no, but I think there's other things. I mean, Laura brought up the point, like we can establish a work session, even if it's not every month, or even if it's a half hour early, or we do whatever to just burn through some of the old items and either clear them off or.
So again, if we have some type of work session in between, we have to, with the public meetings law, do we have to take minutes? Does it have to be recorded on Zoom? I mean, how would that work?
Any meeting,
I don't know.
I'm just asking.
any meeting any meeting of the board where there's a quorum present, it constitutes an official meeting, and minutes have to be recorded of the actions taken and the votes.
And the votes, you said?
Yeah, and the votes.
Motions.
So,
Yeah,
you can say, Commissioner Stark made a motion to do X, seconded by Commissioner Buck. It was approved 5-0 or something like that. That's, you know, technically the minimum requirement is just a record of the actions of the meeting. But, you know, that's a, you know, minute preparation is a art unto itself sometimes.
So we have to take minutes. And as far as action, I hate to say this, but in my minutes, I put you down for almost all the action items. Sorry about that. But, you know, it's, like Robert said, it's important to go through all the old business, and we didn't even go there.
You know,
We have an issue.
if I can, because we have the same, we struggle with the same problem with the board. And the mayor has established limits, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. The clerk keeps the time, and when it's up, it's up. I mean, and you know, you're not being nasty, but so you can opt to give a little bit more time. But if it's the same material, if it's the same information, person wants to go on and said, you know what, I like the stop sign. Put me down for the stop sign. I get it. You know, instead of going through the reasoning all the time. I mean, you understand. You understood that the people want a stop sign at on North Barry, right? You understood, and you understand why that may or may not be the best thing. And so you got it. So there's no need to drag it on to a debate. I mean, I think they understand that you know how they feel, and you gotta protect your time too. Your time is valuable, and it is the only time you have to deliberate.
That's a good point.
But
That's
right
all
now,
good
we
feedback, Robert. We appreciate you doing the research beforehand and being able to pull up from the archives and reference the situation. Like, that's incredible.
That, I agree with Robert. That's a valuable.
I have the time. I have plenty of free time.
That's valuable because we can cross-reference information instead of recreating the wheel.
Right.
But you will find that things change. I mean, you can watch this village change right before your eyes. So especially we were talking about it last night, whether a 3 or 4 year old traffic study in a certain area was even valid anymore. I mean, probably is, but that was.
Well, most residents, the first thing they say is how things have changed. I know that's kind of like tried and true from
the whole. I mean, the Hoyt cut through issue, right? The Hoyt. I mean, you know, that didn't exist when I moved here, and that's only been about 4 years ago.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
you know, 2016, they did that traffic study, and that traffic study has changed exponentially since then.
Yeah, I mean, things change. Time, you know, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, I've been doing this a while. I think what you see was a lot of the requests come in really deal with school pedestrian traffic, and that's what you see is every 10 years, kids cycle. A family may have 2 or 3 kids. They'll cycle through an elementary school. They'll go to the next school. Then you have new parents come in, see the same issue, and ask the same questions.
Yeah, no, that's true too.
Very, very, very true.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. I think we made improvements month to month and day by day, to be honest with you. I hope everyone feels the same. We'll get better, and
We have a good team here.
yeah. So I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you, Sasha. Thanks, Delia. You're still on the line. Not sure if you're still listening. Appreciate your participation, and obviously Ryan, Gary, and of course you, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.